My sister tried to walk down the aisle at my wedding. In a full wedding dress, she wanted my moment so badly that she was willing to steal it in front of everyone. But after a lifetime of being treated like the unwanted child, I finally delivered the sweetest revenge she never saw coming. I grew up knowing one thing with absolute certainty. My sister was the golden child, and I was the mistake. My parents didn't hide it, soften it, or pretend otherwise. If she pointed a finger at me, they punished me. If I pointed a finger at her, even with clear, undeniable evidence, they found a way to scold me instead. It was a pattern woven into the fabric of my childhood. My birthday cakes were always her favorite flavor, even though they knew I hated it. Outings were planned around her interests, even if the day was supposed to be mine. Gifts were always better for her, bigger, more thoughtful, more expensive, and she basked in it. She never learned kindness because she never had to. She got everything she demanded, and I got whatever was left over. At first, she mostly ignored me. I was beneath her, an inconvenience, a spare child, a punching bag she didn't always have time for, but everything changed when we hit our teenage years. She lost her friends. I never knew the real reason. Maybe they moved. Maybe they finally got tired of her cruelty. Whatever the reason, the day I noticed her walking alone at school was the day she decided I wasn't just an inconvenience anymore. I was the enemy. My popularity made it worse. She couldn't stand that I had something she didn't. Suddenly, every interaction turned into an attack. She accused me of things I never did. She told my parents that my friends were bad influences, and without asking questions, they forbid me from hanging out with them. Whenever I argued, they'd say, "Why can't you be like your sister? She enjoys family. She respects us. She makes better choices." The truth was simple. My sister was miserable, and she wanted me to be miserable too. What saved me from complete isolation wasn't my parents, it was my extended family. My cousins saw the way things were at home, and they treated me with kindness I never got inside my own house. But even that small comfort threatened my sister. When she heard my cousins invited me somewhere, she made sure I couldn't go. I remember one gathering vividly. Someone invited me to something fun, something I desperately wanted to attend, and I responded sadly, "I'm not allowed to go anywhere. I'm not allowed to have friends because my sister doesn't have any." My words were innocent. I wasn't trying to stir anything up. But those words made their way to the adults. And for the first time ever, my parents were confronted. They tore into my parents for their favoritism, for isolating me, for treating me unfairly. My parents punished me for lying, grounding me for a month, but after that incident, they eased their grip slightly. Not because they cared, but because they were embarrassed. That was a turning point for my sister. She couldn't stand the idea of people knowing she had no friends, so she demanded to switch schools. My parents complied instantly, even though it meant more fees, more distance, more effort. She made new friends, but she never stopped tormenting me. Her friends would come over and bully me while my parents called it light teasing. She accused my friends of stealing whenever they visited, so I never invited anyone again. My house wasn't a home. It was a battlefield. And then came boys. I got my first boyfriend. I was reluctant to bring him home, but my parents insisted. Predictably, they isolated me, leaving him alone with my sister. Minutes later, he found me upset and disgusted. She had come out in skimpy clothes, flirting, whispering lies about me. He rejected her immediately. She ran to my parents, claiming he had flirted with her. And of course, they believed her. They banned me from seeing him again. I was devastated but not surprised. It happened again with the next boyfriend. Again, he rejected her. And again, she destroyed the relationship with a single lie. My parents didn't even pretend to be logical. They declared that I picked bad boys and that my sister was simply warning me because she was more mature. I learned to hide my dating life. I learned to keep secrets. I learned to swallow the pain. My sister brought one boyfriend home, and my parents worshipped him. They constantly compared me to her, taunting me that I'd never find someone as good. When he eventually left her, they rewrote the story. Suddenly he was manipulative, toxic, unworthy. The hypocrisy was exhausting. She had more money, she had later curfews, she had freedom. And whenever I asked why, they simply said, because she's older. When I became her age, the rule magically changed. Suddenly, it wasn't about age, it was about trust. And apparently, I didn't deserve any. By the time she graduated high school, her mediocre grades were celebrated like milestones. My good grades were dismissed with, "Why celebrate? You always get those." And when college came around, the truth revealed itself in the ugliest way. My mother sat me down and explained calmly that they had no money for my college because they were investing in my sister's future. I would have to start working immediately after graduation, and maybe they would consider helping me once my sister finished school. On top of that, if I stayed home, I had to pay rent. The only good thing was that by then I had already been preparing myself for independence. I had buried myself in studying, seeing education as my only path to freedom, and it paid off. I earned a full scholarship, a good university, a solid program, something completely mine. I announced it on social media so my parents couldn't sabotage it, then told them in person. They pretended to be proud until my sister began poisoning their minds again. Within days, they tried to convince me not to go, but they couldn't stop me anymore. College saved me. Distance saved me. Freedom saved me. And it was during this time that I met the man who would become my husband, the man who would change everything, including my definition of revenge. College was the first time in my life I breathed freely. No constant accusations, no golden child theatrics, no parents hovering over my shoulder waiting for me to slip up. I finally learned who I was without the weight of their judgment crushing me. And that's when I met him, the man who would become my husband. Where I was quiet from years of being beaten down, he was sharp-witted and fearless. Where I was used to swallowing insults, he clapped back instantly. Where I overthought every reaction, he jumped straight into battle. He was everything I wasn't allowed to be, and he adored me exactly as I was. He was the type of man who wouldn't just imagine revenge. He would plan it, rehearse it, record it, and execute it with precision. And once he heard the stories about my childhood, my sister, and my parents, he didn't just get angry. He got invested. He looked me in the eye one night and said, "If these people ever try anything with me, I'm exposing them so hard the earth will split." I believed him. Fast forward to our engagement. We were planning a simple, meaningful wedding. Nothing extravagant because we preferred to spend on our dream honeymoon to Europe. My parents lived nearby, and even though every instinct told me to avoid them, a small part of me wondered if time had softened things. Distance can make memories feel unreal, like the abuse happened to someone else. So when my parents demanded to meet my fiancé, I reluctantly agreed, on one condition: they were never to be alone with him. But my husband's eyes lit up like it was Christmas morning. He wanted to go alone. He was excited. He even bought a tiny recorder, the kind you can hide in a pocket. "Just in case," he grinned. "You never know what kind of stupid they'll try." So he went, and when he came back, he burst through the door like a man returning from war with glorious treasure. "Babe! Babe! You won't believe the insanity I just heard. This is going to be epic." He was vibrating like a kid who just discovered a secret button that launches fireworks. I froze. "What happened?" I whispered. He lifted the recorder like a holy artifact, but he didn't let me listen. Not yet. "Let me explain first," he said. "Otherwise, you'll think I'm lying." And then he told me. My parents, my loving, discriminating, golden child worshipping parents, sat him down and said they would only pay for our wedding if... My sister walked down the aisle first, in a full wedding dress, at my wedding, not as a bridesmaid, not as a guest, as a bride. They wanted her to have the experience. They wanted photos, they wanted a cake. They said it wasn't fair for a younger sister to marry first. My sister had apparently been demanding this for weeks, and my parents actually thought this was reasonable. My husband said he almost blacked out from shock. His brain temporarily malfunctioned, in his own words. They expected him to agree. pretend to surprise me the day of the wedding, and make me accept it because I hate conflict. They wanted to steal my wedding day and hand it to their golden child. I sat there shaking. My parents had hurt me in many ways, but this was a new level of cruelty. Before I could speak, my husband leaned forward, eyes glowing. "Babe, we are going to destroy them." And that night, we began planning the most beautiful, humiliating, catastrophic revenge imaginable. We made outrageous plans at first. Multiple venues, fake addresses, staged meltdowns. But his level-headed brothers stopped us from anything illegal. So we crafted the perfect plan. Simple, clean, brutal. We pretended to agree. My husband went back to my parents and told them he had thought it over and believed that my sister should walk down the aisle first to keep the family together. My sister literally skipped with joy. Skipped. My parents were ecstatic. They truly believed they had tricked me again. They didn't realize they were the ones being played. From that moment on, every decision went through my husband and my sister. Whenever something expensive came up, flowers, photography, premium menu choices, my husband would purposely act disappointed, muttering things like, "It's a shame we can't get the best options. We don't want to take advantage of your generosity." Immediately, my sister would whine to my parents until they graciously upgraded everything. We got the highest tier menu, the most expensive photographer, the premium bar, luxurious flowers, and upgraded venue package. And we didn't pay a single cent. We called it emotional damage compensation. Meanwhile, we hired a professional security guard. His one job? Do not let my sister into the venue, especially if she shows up in a wedding dress. And then the big day arrived, the moment my parents planned, the moment when my sister would walk down the aisle in a bridal gown, stealing the spotlight before I entered. Except our security was already in place. My parents had no idea. The bridal march started. I entered the ceremony, and behind the venue doors, my sister was pounding her fists against a security guard in a full wedding gown, screaming that she was the real bride. This is where everything collapses. This is where the revenge hits full force. This is where the golden child finally faces the truth. My father was supposed to escort me down the aisle, but the moment he saw me prepared and ready, he froze. He kept glancing behind me, waiting for my sister to appear, waiting for their plan to unfold. When she didn't, his face turned the color of wet cement. Then his phone buzzed. I saw the caller ID. My sister. He panicked. He muttered something and abandoned me, right at the entrance of my own wedding. He left the bride standing alone. The guests gasped. Whispers erupted around the room. A friend of mine who was in on the plan ran up theatrically. "What happened?" she shouted loud enough for the entire venue to hear. I took a shaky breath, real, and acted, because watching my own father walk away from me hit deeper than expected. "He said it wasn't supposed to be me," I whispered. The room exploded into murmurs. "What do you mean it wasn't supposed to be you? Is she okay? What is going on?" My friend stormed out toward the entrance, as planned, to stall my dad and sister. She knew exactly how to create chaos. She yelled, she mocked, she distracted. She pulled every ounce of dramatic chaos we needed. Meanwhile, my future father-in-law rushed to my side, breathless, saying, "I'll walk you. They won't ruin this for you." And with that, I walked down the aisle to my real family, the one I married into. The scene at the door. Here's what happened outside while I was walking toward my husband. My sister arrived in a full-blown wedding dress. White, sparkling, huge train. She even had a veil. She tried sweeping past security, chest puffed out, announcing, "I'm the bride." The guard calmly replied, "No, you're not. The bride already arrived." She screamed, "She stole my spot. I'm supposed to walk first. Let me in." My father tried threatening the guard with police involvement, yelling, "You don't work here. We don't know you." Security just smirked and said, "Perfect. I'll call the police myself." My sister spiraled into a toddler meltdown, kicking the floor, sobbing, screaming. When my mother rushed over and saw what was happening, the horror on her face was priceless. People started gathering outside, filming, whispering, horrified by their behavior. The three of them tried to save face by blaming everything on my husband. He agreed. He promised. He planned it with us. So, my husband came out and delivered the performance of his life. He looked confused and disgusted. "What are you talking about?" he asked them. "Why would I ever agree to something that disgusting? Where's the proof?" They had none, because we made sure everything was never in writing. He kept going. "How dare you try to ruin her wedding? She deserves this day after everything you put her through." He verbally dismantled them so thoroughly that even the security guard looked impressed. The guests who overheard were furious, demanding my parents leave the premises. My father clenched his fists. My mother cried. My sister wailed and literally sat on the ground again like a child. Security finally ordered them to leave. My father had to drag my sister off the ground because she refused to walk. That was how their part of the wedding ended. My wedding. Inside the venue, magic, peace, joy, freedom. People were extra kind to me, maybe out of guilt, maybe because they finally saw the truth, or maybe because it was the first time they ever watched my family get publicly exposed. The ceremony was beautiful. The food was delicious and fully paid for by my parents. The drinks were top shelf. The flowers were stunning. The photos came out like a dream, all funded by the same people who tried to hijack my wedding. My husband, sweet, mischievous, wicked man, kept breaking character and grinning at me. "Worth every second," he whispered. We left before anyone could ruin our night, heading straight to the hotel before our honeymoon. The aftershock. After the wedding, my parents and sister blew up my phone. My husband insisted we leave everything unanswered for evidence. Eventually, my sister messaged me. It was unhinged. She blamed me for humiliating her. She called my husband a two-faced snake. She insisted he had pretended to sleep with her, which made him laugh so hard he choked. He grabbed my phone, took screenshots of everything, and dumped them into the entire family group chat. "Please help," he wrote dramatically. "They're harassing your daughter. They're trying to ruin our honeymoon the way they tried to ruin the wedding. Please don't tell them where we are." He even threatened to sue my parents for harassment and defamation, still keeping the act going. My extended family snapped. My parents and sister were bombarded with calls. "How could you do that? You tried to ruin her wedding? What is wrong with you people? You wanted your other daughter to walk down the aisle? Are you sick?" Demand after demand after demand. Eventually, my parents and sister went silent, completely silent. My husband sighed. Shame she didn't keep going. I had so much more ready to say. The truth, people always ask me why my parents treated me this way. I still don't know. Maybe I was unplanned. Maybe they were overwhelmed. Maybe my sister was their miracle baby and I was the extra child. Maybe they resented the responsibility. But one thing I know for sure. Their reasons will never justify their cruelty. And on my wedding day, after a lifetime of discrimination, they finally faced consequences. Not from me crying, not from me begging, not from me trying to earn their love, but from me standing tall from my husband's brilliance and from the truth being exposed to everyone. My revenge wasn't just sweet, it was justified. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the mistake. I wasn't the afterthought. I wasn't the spare. I was the bride. I was the one who mattered. I won.